We're off to the races.
We're here.
All right. So we should start seeing some people join in.
We like to.
So Danielle, did you happen to, you said you flew all over the United States, but did you go outside the country?
I was not qualified for international. It was like a seniority thing back then
is that what
to
it is?
fly international. Yeah. So.
Huh. So that's interesting. So it's just seniority, those people that.
Exactly.
You know, but it's which, okay, I can get, but also there's, when you're on those international flights, they're much longer.
Yeah, so they only had to work like depending upon your route, sometimes you only had to work like 2 or 3 trips a month and you were done. So that's
really?
why it was primo. Yeah. So people wanted that. Yeah.
Hey, Sumit's back.
Sumit's here. Howard's here.
Hi, Howard.
Look at you, Sam, all sunburned.
Yeah.
Is sunburned? Getting too much sun there?
Yeah, getting too much sun. Been in the mountains a lot. So, yeah. So we were just talking to Danielle about her time as a flight attendant. All the joys there. We're gonna jump into when we get into the discussion, we'll talk a little bit about that, but I'm excited to hear more.
That ought to prepare you for everything.
Yeah. And how are you doing, Smith?
Not too bad. I'm a little jealous of all the people who are on vacation these days.
Yeah. It's vacation season, right?
I don't think there's anything to be jealous about, Sumit, though. I have friends who have been stuck in airports for 30 hours, dying to get home. Their luggage went to their destination without them. So if it makes you feel any better, I don't think it's like very glamorous right now.
Yeah.
I think Sam's lucky he got to where he is. Some people are like, I'm stuck. I've missed so many flights. It's like pretty wild.
Been there, done that. So I completely hear you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I saw something on the news recently about all the lost luggage, or people, luggage just like making it packed in the airport, and the airlines are telling people they lost it, and people are saying, "No, I have a tracker on my luggage. I know it's there."
I know, yeah, with those air tags now, those Apple air tags, you know exactly where your luggage are nowadays.
Don't lie to me, I can see it.
Yeah.
Not glamorous. Not glamorous anymore.
All right, so we're just about at the top of the hour here. Go ahead and share my screen, and Jules, you can kick it off.
Yay, it's time. I just had to let out a yay.
Yeah,
all right.
I was like, when we get to the top of the hour here, we can get going.
Yes. All right, everyone. Well, welcome to the People Strategy Forum. My name is Jules. It's my pleasure to welcome you here and explain everything that we do here, because I know over the past few weeks, we've had some new faces. So we definitely want to invite you to keep on coming back, because this is a weekly forum. It's designed to really help you engage, energize, and elevate your employees and your company. We want you to walk away every week with some valuable takeaways, some good advice. And how we do that is we bring on an awesome guest speaker each and every week. And then we also have an awesome expert panel. So we try to keep it fun, interactive, really conversational. It's not too rigid or anything like that. So if you do have any questions at all, we have a chat box. So I encourage you to go to the chat box, type in your question. If you have any comments or feedback for our speaker, even if you just want to be like, yay, Danielle, something like that, that's fine too. Put it in there, address it to everyone, and we'll make sure we get everything answered for you. We have a short amount of time, so we'll pack in as much as we can. All right, so to introduce the rest of our panel today, we normally have Shah with us, but she won't be joining us today. She has another commitment today, but hopefully she will be back on next week. We have Howard. Howard is a compensation advisor and expert, HR consultant with years of experience implementing really successful compensation programs into various organizations. And he works with Comp Team, works with Sam over at Comp Team. We also have Sumit, who is a people strategist, HR consultant, very experienced in helping companies restructure and implement better HR processes so they can function a lot better, be a lot more productive, have happier staff, all the good stuff. And then we also have Sam, who is the creator of the People Strategy Forum, but he is also a talent management and compensation expert, and his company Comp Team helps a lot of organizations restructure all their compensation programs and talent initiatives. So as you can see, we've got a nice panel of hosts with a lot of varied backgrounds. So anything you want to ask them, go right ahead. That now takes me to our guest speaker for today. We're really excited to have Danielle Mulvey with us. So if you joined a little before we started the official live stream, she was a flight attendant, so we might speak to that a little bit. But she is now an entrepreneur. She was like, you know, I'm going to work for myself. I can't do this flight attendant life. She actually has a lot of expertise in recruiting and retaining 5-star teams. So we're going to really talk about that and her strategies on how to create 5-star teams. Because, you know, good employees, as we know, can be hard to find. So she's going to help us how to find them and how to keep them. And she has actually used her own experience in order to create her own dream teams to help her scale all her companies. And all her companies have scaled to about 50 million a year in revenue, which is fantastic. Go girl, love that. But she's also a podcast host, which, I mean, look at her setup. She's definitely doing podcasting, and she's also written a book. So we're very excited. Thank you so much for sharing some time with us today, Danielle. And we're excited to just dive into these 6 strategies that you've got for us.
Let's go.
Let's do it.
So if I can start by saying a little bit about what we define as a 5-star employee. So to us, a 5-star employee represents the top 15% of available talent in the market for the given rate. So statistically, that means 1 out of 7 candidates is potentially a 5-star employee. So, you know, it's basically a numbers game. You know, if you're wanting to recruit and hire 5-star employees, you need to get at least 21 applicants to statistically have maybe 3 potential 5-star candidates. So the 5-star candidate is that, you know, top level, that A player. And the point is that, you know, you don't want to settle for 1, 2, and 3-star employees, because 1, 2, and 3-star employees, you need 2 or 3 of them to do the job of 1 5-star employee. So if you remember nothing else from my appearance today, just remember, never settle for less than 5-star employees.
That's great. And so tell us a little bit of what are the first steps that a business owners out there need to think about when they want to go down this path to find that perfect candidate?
Yeah, so there's 6 strategies, and the first one would be to get different. So, you know, you want to stand out from the crowd, and if you know, most businesses are just, you know, recruiting and putting it out there on Indeed, and their job posting looks like every other job posting. I like to use the example of a bookkeeper, because most businesses need a bookkeeper in their business, whether they're, you know, outsourcing it or having it inside. And, you know, if you look at job postings for bookkeepers, they all look the same. They all look vanilla. And yes, to a certain degree, they are, you know, doing the same job. But the point is that you want to get different about how you're positioning the role, and be specific about what you want. So like for me, if I'm hiring a bookkeeper, I'm going to say small business bookkeeper with the heart of a teacher. So, you know, I'm not just saying I want a part-time bookkeeper or full-time bookkeeper, which is what most other job titles are going to say, just very generic, very basic. I'm saying I'm getting a little bit specific about, you know, and I'm being different in my job posting about how I'm posting for it. And then in my job description, yes, you have to have that formal job description that has everything down to, you know, the ability to lift, you know, a 25-pound box of files. But in your job posting, that's another opportunity to get different. Talk about your core values in that job posting. List the 3 to 5 key responsibilities in that job posting. Go do different things in that job posting to help you stand out and attract people that say, hey, this company looks pretty cool. It's not like all these other, vanilla ho-hum bookkeeping positions. So the first challenge is to get different about what you're looking for and how you're getting out there and posting that job description. And then the second strategy is,
one
sorry.
thing real quick there, Danielle, because I have a question around that, because I think we need to bring that out of managers, right? I mean, there's sometimes that we might know what there's the certain core values of the company, but the hiring manager might be looking for somebody that's specific, that they need on their team. Like you just mentioned, that has the heart of a teacher or something like that. So they're looking for somebody to explain things and so forth. And so it seems like it's very important for the recruiter or the talent scout, as you are, to bring that out from the hiring manager to see what they really are looking for. Is that right?
You're exactly right. And we were asked by one of our former clients, went to work with another company and they needed to fill a bunch of positions fast. And what's funny is they said, could you help us out? And I was like, sure. I just need to talk to the hiring manager. And they're like, oh, they're way too busy. They don't have time. They just need you to hire people. And I said, well, then I can't help you. Because if I can't talk to the hiring manager and I can't properly represent what this position actually is and what the hiring manager is looking for, then I'm just shooting in the dark. And I would hate to waste a candidate's time or someone that gets hired and it's not a match. It's not a fit. So you're exactly right. Hiring managers absolutely need to be involved in really helping to articulate what aptitudes, what skills, what qualities are needed in the role. And maybe even sometimes it's like what's not wanted, what won't work for someone in the role, because that posting that position should attract 5-star candidates and ideally repel the 1, 2, and 3-star candidates who, are just applying to everything and just want to collect a paycheck, but maybe aren't a passionate bookkeeper to begin with. So that's not a 5-star person. And so that job description actually starts by, being different about how you're articulating what you want, what you don't want, so that you're differentiating yourself from the crowd and attracting more of those 5-star candidates and repelling the 1, 2, and 3-star candidates.
Yeah, I think we forget to have managers, answer the question, why should someone want to work for you in this company versus, the 10 other companies that are advertising the same position?
Yeah, exactly. And the more specific you can get about things, the better it is. I actually like to use a kind of I guess you could call it a technique. But I've had hiring managers write a narrative. What is a day in the life? What is a week in the life of this position like? So that, and sharing that in the recruitment process so that the candidate really does understand. And again, talk about get different. I mean, how many jobs out there are really like giving you a good under the hood glimpse of what a day in the life or a week in the life of the position is, because, there's a lot of people have never done this job before, maybe necessarily. They could be recent college graduates, et cetera. So the more that you can really set appropriate and realistic expectations, the better. You don't want to be, saying, oh, it's all rosy, it's all perfect, it's all great. Because that's really what has been the cause of the Great Resignation is people feel like they've been hoodwinked. They were sold on this job and they were sold on this culture. And then the reality is that job is not really what it was portrayed to be. And that culture is not really what was portrayed to be either.
Yeah, such great advice. I mean, when you're a candidate, if you're looking for an accountant job, right? You know what an accountant is, you know what the work is like, but you have no idea what the company is like. You have no idea what the manager's like, or or whatever. So it's good to get that information. That's great. So what's number 2?
So number 2 is always be recruiting. So, this is the concept of having a virtual bench and always be looking for, people with the qualities, the aptitudes, and the skills that would be a good fit in your organization for existing roles or maybe future roles in your organization. I have people that I hired someone last year who was literally on my virtual bench for 7 years. They were a vendor to us. And, I'd always said to them, I would love to do something with you. I would love to, have you join our team, but I didn't have the role for them at the time. And so when the role and it made sense to bring them on, like this was someone that was on my virtual bench, and always be recruiting and having that virtual bench is great because you've experienced them doing work. You've experienced them being an employee for someone else. So that also helps solidify too, that they don't just say that they can do it. You've actually seen them do it and demonstrate the qualities, the aptitudes, the skills that you need for a role. So always be recruiting, always just be keeping your eye out there in terms of talent in the market. Because the other thing too is people love to be wanted. And so, when you approach someone about a job, it really kind of makes them feel special that they're getting recognized for being a great employee. So that's number 2 is always be recruiting.
That's great. I remember when I was at Barclays, that was one of the things some of the executive recruiters would do is they would always keep in contact with certain individuals, go out to lunch on a regular basis. And they were not only people that were on their bench that they were constantly trying to pull into the company, but they also end up being a good source of leads for other opportunities for so forth. So
yeah,
that was great.
Yeah. Birds of a feather flock together. So that person probably has other great leads too. Exactly. Number 3 is recruit for function, not title. So I kind of gave this away a little bit in my first example, but if you're recruiting, you want to, in that job title, what are you really looking for? So I'm not looking for a bookkeeper. I'm looking for a small business bookkeeper with the heart of a teacher. So there's some expectation that they're going to be able to explain things. They're not just, a compliance oriented bookkeeper, which is what 90% or 85% of bookkeepers are, is just getting it in the right box. If I'm looking for someone, like a small business blog editor, get very specific about what it is that they're doing in the role. So most businesses would maybe, instead of saying a small business blog editor, they would say, a social media content creator. They would use generic terms. And so again, the more specific that you can get about what you're looking for. So it's really more function over title. What do you really need for that person to do? You wouldn't want to say a vice president of operations. You'd want to say vice president of programming and content development, or, get as specific as possible in your job titles and your job postings. You do want to use those generic ones too, because that's what works in the SEO and in the search engines with the job posting sites, et cetera. But again, try to get more specific about the function that you need the person to do.
And that's interesting, that some of the companies I've worked with have these crazy titles, like for instance, they're a Dreamweaver. It's like, oh, okay, do you use that for recruiting? How do you find people? They of course they explain this, but how do you do that balance between really making sure that the person functionally knows what they're doing versus that? I'm sure that there's just a way of you're writing it. Do you help your clients write these descriptions?
Yeah, so absolutely. So what we do really is we help companies go all in on their recruiting and hiring. So the problem why most businesses struggle is they really haven't taken the time to go all in on their recruiting and hiring. They've kind of been like, oh, we need a bookkeeper. Oh, let's Google and see if we can get some job postings for bookkeeper, and then they take 3 vanilla job postings and they make it their own, and they say, yes, check. Oh, we got someone coming in for an interview. Let me Google some questions, or let me buy a book and ask some questions and such. So they really haven't taken the time to, again, go all in on their recruitment and hiring and really get specific and really think about the things that they want and don't want in a candidate. So we have programming that takes business owners and hiring managers through a process where they actually are creating tangible assets that they can put into their recruiting and hiring arsenal, including scorecards and interview packets on the aptitudes and skills that they need with customized questions and a packet to interview on the 11 qualities of a 5-star employee, so that they really have a good arsenal of assets that they use in their recruitment and hiring process.
Sam, one point here to what you were saying earlier. I was talking to somebody who had a very interesting title, and they sent me a LinkedIn request. The title was, they were in HR, and the title was Nurturance Officer. I was very curious to understand what this is all about. And I asked them why, what's the job description, or what exactly do they do, and why do they have titles like that? The answer was 2 reasons. One, it sounds fancy, so it gets people interested. The second one, which was funny, was if somebody's trying to look for people who are not really looking out for a job and they're trying to attract passive candidates, they would not turn up in a search. So you're looking for an HR business partner, you search for HR business partners in your LinkedIn recruiter application, this person doesn't turn up. So they're a little harder to find. And so, I mean, I never really thought of that reason.
Yeah, that's interesting strategy.
Yeah, it's kind of, you've got to be careful with that. So, I still had bookkeeper in my title when I said small business bookkeeper with the heart of a teacher. So if someone's looking for a bookkeeping position, it would still show up in the search. So, so I still have kind of like that traditional title in there, but I've added more of what their function is going to be, which is more than just being a traditional bookkeeper. Does that make sense?
Absolutely, yeah.
So for this individual, that's the nurturing person. It could have been a human resources recruiter with a nurturing tendency.
Sure. So. One other thing is that now that we're in this global age of remote work, and there's people. I mean, we can hire great candidates from around the world. There's at times there's when we use, like, for instance, accountant or accounts receivable or something like this is a common job that we have our mindset around. But then when we're looking at certain areas that maybe the job is something a little bit different because maybe they do things differently there or they have different experiences. So is there some guidance you give leaders in as far as when they're looking at international candidates in this regard?
Okay. So, I would say that it's important to objectively define like the 3 to 5 key responsibilities. So this is on the list of attracting that 5-star candidate and a strategy to do that. So in your job posting and when you talk about the position, you want to identify the 3 to 5 key responsibilities. So it's not the laundry list of everything that you see in most job postings, which is like a list of 10, 20 things. But you want to really narrow it down into 3 things that really help drive the revenue for the business. And then objectively and quantify what success is in one of those 3 to 5 key responsibilities. So for example, you brought up someone who is who's responsible for AR. So you would want them responsible for maintaining accounts receivable and ensuring that less than 6% of total accounts receivable is over 60 days. So this person has like, okay, what is managing accounts receivable? you draw a line where and set the bar as to what you need in terms of success for that role. And so in this case, when we're recruiting someone to manage accounts receivables in the business, we're going to say, okay, you need to manage our accounts receivable, and we expect that less than 6% of total outstanding receivables is going to be in the over 60 category. So objectively define what success means. And again, that's going to attract the 5-star person that's like, oh my gosh, yes, someone who really cares about like that I do a good job and will appreciate the fact that I am on it and I don't let these accounts get past 60 days if I can. I mean, you can't control everything, but you know, that's going to attract that 5-star candidate. And the person who's been doing accounts receivable and whose prior bosses haven't cared that, you know, 50% of their accounts receivables are 60 days or older, is not going to apply for this job. They're going to be repelled by the fact that they can't just collect a paycheck and have no one care about the job that they're doing. Does that make sense?
It does. It does. Oh, what I really like is the rule you're saying, the top 3 to 5 characteristics of the job. Because I've seen, well, I just remember as a young candidate, reading these descriptions and they're like 20 points, and I'm like going down and like going, man, it's like, yeah, I'm really good at these 5, and I have no idea about the rest of those. And so it's like, do I not apply? Because I've never had that experience. But then later on, when I got in the business, I found that managers would ask this, and I'd be saying, is this really important? It's like, oh no, we can train them on how to do that. It's like, well, if you put this in there, then you mean chase somebody away, because I remember myself in those shoes.
Yeah, we got to get away from the laundry list.
Yeah.
And then Danielle, going back to the titles, we actually do have a question. So Daniel on our in our audience he was I guess there was a job posting, and he simply requested to change the receptionist posting to front desk coordinator, because after only 8 weeks of having it up online, they only got 3 applicants. So he suggested changing it to front desk coordinator, but was shot down by the corporate office. So do you have any ideas on how to change the corporate mindset? That's our first question.
Yeah. So, well, changing the corporate mindset is a little tough. I would say that, you're looking for someone who's more of an administrative assistant, probably, if it's someone that's got a front desk coordinator role, if you don't want to use the receptionist term. So again, you need to use that traditional term so that you're coming up when candidates are searching for receptionist type positions. But then you'll stand out because, receptionist who coordinates the front desk of a busy office, or who coordinates the front desk for, a company with 300 employees. You want to give some qualification to that. And now it sounds like, okay, I was looking for a receptionist job, because that's kind of just, employees just kind of have those generic terms in terms of what they're looking for in a job. Oh, I'm a receptionist, but a 5-star receptionist is going to be like, but I'm a rock star at this. And so they're going to be attracted to the receptionist and front desk coordinator for, marketing company with 500 employees. So now that's going to tell them, okay, this is going to be pretty busy. This is going to be pretty exciting, working for a marketing company with 500 employees, and I'm the front desk coordinator. It sounds like I've got a pretty significant role. Does that make sense?
It does, but brings me to a question. How do you get rid of, say, gender bias in a role title? For example, for most people, the title receptionist would bring up the image of a woman shuffling papers. A nurse would typically be a woman in a lot of parts of the world. So like you say, woman pilot, in many countries, you'd say male nurse, because it's a profession that's associated with women more often. So how do you get rid of?
Yeah, well, I think for people with professional designation, so a nurse has the professional designation to be called a nurse. I mean, a male nurse is going to just look for a nursing job, whether it's a female or I think for people in that industry. So if I'm a nurse, that means I've gone through school and I'm qualified to be a nurse. Yes. 80% of people in that field are females, but I'm qualified to be a nurse. So I'm just going to look for a job that says nurse. And, I think with receptionists, it just, and I've seen people in these roles who, are not, like you said, like people tend to think, oh, it's generic, but if someone wants to be a receptionist and they're a male, they're going to look for that job that's a receptionist. They're going to search those key terms and see if something stands out that might be a little bit different. But I think from the employee level, people are still going to look for those generic terms and do that. And they're not going to be turned away from that. If someone's a pilot, they're just going to look for jobs that say pilot. They're not going to look for jobs that say female pilot, because you really can't say I'm looking for a female pilot. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. Thank you.
One other thing, one of our listeners just brought up, Nadia, she was talking about finding dream candidates potentially across other industries. And is that one of your elements? I mean, I don't want to jump ahead, but
yeah. So that's part of always be recruiting. So dive into like looking at people that maybe have spent 20 years in real estate. And they've got some, interesting and useful skills there. Could you bring them over to this side? So like, for example, my sister-in-law is in commercial real estate, and she's an administrative assistant in commercial real estate, and she has rocked it for 20 years. And in a heartbeat, like, because she's been managing an office of 15 commercial brokers, and like they're doing amazing, and the office is just producing great. She would be a wonderful project manager in one of my companies, and we're not in commercial real estate. So definitely look at other industries, and that's where that virtual bench, that's where, kind of coming in contact with candidates and getting them comfortable with like, okay, your skills are universal and can work in commercial real estate. It can work in recruiting and hiring. It can work in construction material supply. So it's that always be recruiting mindset. But then you also want to cast as wide of a net as possible. So this is another one of the 6 strategies of casting as wide of a net as possible. I find that most people are a bit lazy when it comes to recruiting, and they're just posting on Indeed. Maybe they're going to spring for ZipRecruiter too. So maybe they're posting on 2 different channels, and that's not casting a very wide net. So when we talk about casting as wide of a net as possible, we are saying, yes, post on the job boards, but if this is a local position, can you put up a big banner in front of your building, not a little wimpy help wanted sign, but a big banner that just like really sells the job. Are you recruiting with the local colleges, with alumni associations? Are you on Facebook? Are you putting it out there on LinkedIn? You don't necessarily have to use LinkedIn Jobs, but you can definitely be putting it out there on your LinkedIn profile saying, hey, we're hiring. And I have to be honest, like I believe in reciprocity. So if I have a really, good contact on LinkedIn who I know personally, more than just being a LinkedIn connection, and they have a job posting, and I think that, they have great companies and it's worthwhile, I help promote their job postings too. And so by sharing my job postings, when I have a job posting, they're likely to share my job posting with their feed and their audience. And so, those are just a couple of ways to cast a wider net. So the challenge is don't just be doing what everyone else is doing. Don't just, like say, okay, check the box. We put it on Indeed. All right. We'll pay a little bit more and we'll go on ZipRecruiter too. So that should get it. Because what's funny about that is, that's okay, but you're only getting like a certain type of candidate from there. And sometimes, there's people in the market who just aren't like actively looking, but if a little carrot gets waved in their view, they'll be like, oh yeah, maybe that would be a good opportunity for me. So, posting on Indeed and posting on ZipRecruiter, Monster, does Career Builder even still exist? I don't know. But you're really just attracting the people that are just looking for jobs and not necessarily, other candidates who could be interested in the position. So that's why you have to get creative and post outside of those traditional job boards.
Can we go through the different to that point that you just brought up? Can we go through the different channels? I mean, you said there's the job boards. There's, potentially doing something locally to attract a local audience, like a banner, something like this. What other aspects should hiring managers think of? Yeah,
so LinkedIn, social media, that would include Facebook and Instagram. And on Facebook, like there's local job boards. And so just putting it out there is good. Working with local colleges and universities, their career centers, most of them are on Handshake. It's kind of a game you got to play on Handshake. One thing I also like, if you're hiring entry-level people, I like to connect because Handshake is like, good luck with some of these schools and their criteria for allowing people to be accepted in their Handshake on their campus. But what I love to do is I love to connect with the administrative assistant in the department where my ideal candidate is going to be graduating or has recently graduated, because they tend to take on, the role of wanting to see their students succeed and such, and they know the right people and stuff. So I often connect with them and send them the job posting, or they'll connect me with like the president of the student run organization about like, professional networking and such for that major. So, I've used that for hiring project managers from engineering departments at universities. And I've used it for hiring accountants and bookkeepers from accounting departments. We use it to hire preschool teachers. So that's a great way. But I again, kind of don't get different. Don't do what everyone else is doing, like do it, but then you got to get different about it. So, most people will just go to the Career Center. They'll apply to get on Handshake, which is the platform that most universities are using. And then that's it. So I try to do that. Sometimes I get rejected by the university, but I go to the specific department where that candidate is a student in that department or a recent graduate in that department.
That's great advice. I was just thinking of a situation that I'm fortunate enough to have a friend that's a professor, and I often ask her, it's like, oh, who do you think would be great for this role? Who do you think would be your top students? And so she gives me a lot of great leads. Sumit, you had something, I think it was on the tip of your tongue.
Absolutely. I think the advice of think different is fantastic. And recently what we've seen is you can get a lot of great employees from tools other than the traditional ones as well. So LinkedIn's own research says that more than 60% of the people are passive job hunters who are not actively checking out job boards and portals and looking for jobs. But if something interesting enough turns up to dislodge them from where they are, they'd be more than happy. And a recent example is Airbnb. They announced their policy of work from anywhere. So when folks like Apple were saying, you got to come back to the office, we believe in collaboration, we believe in sitting together, Airbnb said nothing doing, work from anywhere. And they reported 600,000 hits on their career page as a result. So that's, I think that's an example of how a small change to the workforce experience acts as a pull by itself and helps you attract. I mean, I don't even know how they processed the number of resumes they would have got, but I
Well,
think that's a good problem to have.
And that's a great point and segue to a question I have for Danielle. As far as the work from anywhere movement, has that changed your practice at all?
So, what's interesting about that is we've got multiple businesses. So we've got a construction material supply business, and that's based kind of local to where we are in California. And during COVID, we sent everyone to work from home, and then we brought everyone back into the office, and they were dying to come back into the office. That group hated working from home for a variety of reasons. And so they wanted to come back into the office. We have a company that processes long-term care claims, and that was based in Carmel, Indiana, and that was a 100% in office position. You did have the ability to work from home like 2 days a week if after you were completed with training and such. And that job, we decided during COVID when we sent everyone home that we were just going to make that a permanent work from home position. And so that position is permanently work from home. I have other businesses where everyone are all over the country and stuff. So I think it just depends upon the business and the role. But I will say, do not use the word flexible. Do not use the word flexible. This is a bonus. Do not use the word flexible in your job postings, because what a employer thinks is flexible is completely different than what an employee thinks is flexibility. So I would say that you're looking for people who are limber. You're not looking for flexibility. You're looking for people that are limber, because your definition of flexibility is not going to match their definition of flexibility. And what you're really looking for is people who are limber, people who can adjust with changes, who can pivot, who are amenable to change, etc. I can't tell you how many emails I've gotten from people who've hired people, and they said, it's a work from home position, and we said it was flexible, but when they completed training, we said, okay, now we need to set up a touch base once a week where you sync up with your supervisor about where things are. And I mean, they've copied and pasted and sent me the responses, and that's not being flexible. What do you mean I have to show up at a certain day and time every week to have a sync up meeting? And like, this job is not for me. And then they quit after, completing 6 weeks of training. And now the person's got to start from scratch again with that. So work from home is good. You just have to be very, very specific. So with our employees, we don't use flexible. This job is not flexible. And so we say, like, after training, you can start your day, but you have to set your schedule with your supervisor, and you have to work the same schedule. But that schedule could be starting anywhere from 6 a.m. Eastern time to 6 p.m. Eastern time. And you have to take 30 minutes for lunch, and you have to meet certain criteria, et cetera. But we don't use the word flexible, because that seems to be like a huge disconnect between what employers want and what employees think is flexibility. So working from home works. I recommend having we call it a daily vitamin C meeting, SEE. So our teams come together. And in office, we do this in office. If it's our construction material supply business, and our other companies, it's virtual, and everyone hops on, and everyone shares their 3 things they did yesterday and their 3 things that they're going to do today. And we see it, SEE, because they put it into, we use ClickUp, and we use the board functionality. And so, what they did, the link to the Dropbox, or, whatever it was that they accomplished and they did, is available for us to like click on and see, so that we can, move forward and stuff. And that is a quick meeting. That meeting is less than 10 minutes. It's a quick touch base. It lets me know what's going on. And it lets everyone else know that they've got to be accountable and they got to be producing results, because I can see it and everyone else can see it, whether they're showing up and getting their work done, and they're doing what they said they were going to do that day or the day prior. You get it?
Yeah, so important. I mean, I hear a lot of things there. I mean, having really good communication is essential, and setting expectations. I mean, to ensure that your candidates and new hires know what is expected of them early on before the company invests a lot of money, and that can be an issue there. Hey, Jules, do we have a question to bring up there?
We do, yes. So it was actually from Daniel. Again, I love Daniel. He's always got his good questions. So he was writing in that his corporate office said to never use the word seeking in a job description, but he's never heard this. Do you have any thoughts on that?
I don't think it's a make or break. I don't think I've ever used that terminology. So I don't think it's a make or break situation. I mean, there's tons of other words out there. For us, which when someone applies for a job, I mean, we really take them through a gauntlet, and we spend a lot of time getting to know the candidate. When someone applies for a job, they are immediately sent an assessment that they need to complete within 24 hours of applying. And if they score 70% or higher on that assessment, then they move forward in our process. Our process includes screening interviews, deep dive interviews. We're using our specific questions based off of the role that we've designed for the aptitudes and skills needed for that role. We have the 11 qualities of a 5-star employee. That's one interview where we dive into, assessing and rating whether or not they have the 11 qualities of a 5-star employee. We also include shadow days in our work. So even for remote employees, we'll bring them in for a shadow day where they're, kind of a fly on the wall, seeing us have a client meeting, seeing us run live programming, seeing us work with our vendors, et cetera. So they really kind of get an understanding of how we operate, what a day in the life looks like. We have that day in the life. So the sixth, I'll finish the list here. The sixth recruitment strategy is to leverage a dedicated recruitment website. And so the dedicated recruitment website shouldn't just be the careers page. It should be like something fun, or a destination that you can send people to, so that when you do meet people, you can say, hey, check us out at workatvista.com, or whatever you want to kind of have a separate website. You can connect to that dedicated website from your careers page, and vice versa. People can then apply on your careers page, but that dedicated website just really shows how much you're going all in on wanting to attract and hire great people, 5-star employees, and you can give them a really good sense and different experience, because most company career websites are pretty generic. It's kind of like an afterthought. The website is so geared on attracting new customers for the business, and it's like, oh yeah, and then careers is down here, and it usually just has maybe your core values are listed, and then it has the jobs that you're currently hiring, and then that's about it. So having a dedicated recruitment site allows you to really woo a candidate, really stand out from the crowd, really get them excited, and really help portray what it is like working for your company. So elements that should be included in a dedicated recruitment site. I talked about this earlier, a day in the life, a week in the life letter, about more of a narrative about here's how your week's going to go when you're a claims examiner at Patriot RN. We include some statistics from employee engagement surveys to show our employees are happy. We use industry statistics. So we're hiring for a long-term care long-term care claims examiner. And most people, especially if we're hiring recent college graduates, have no idea what long-term care is and that it exists and what's the purpose of that. So we include industry statistics about the long-term care industry so people can see, oh, wow, this industry is like really growing and it's going to get real big over the next 20 years. This might be like a good ticket to ride here and such. And we outline our process. We have testimonials from existing employees and people that we call alumni of our organization who, took this job as an entry-level position and then have moved on in the industry to bigger and better roles and such. So we really help paint a picture about why people should consider joining our organizations.
That's great. Thanks for that. That's, I mean, having that dedicated site, it's got to be so powerful because basically you're communicating directly to that audience, right? And so it just makes so much common sense.
Yeah, because you're really limited in the job posting, how much you can share about the company
Right.
when you're posting on Indeed. So like in a couple of places we have, please go to such and such.com to check it out. So actually we use patriotrn.com for one of our companies. So that's where our dedicated recruitment site stands for one of them.
One thing I want to revisit really quick is that, what Daniel was asking earlier about, using certain words in the posting. Are there certain taboos that would chase away high quality candidates that we need to be aware of as managers?
I don't know that there would be, I think, the more vague you are, they're probably not that interested because they're interested in being attracted to companies where, again, that birds of a feather flock together. So if I'm saying, hey, if you want to be a claims examiner and you, want to be measured to 98% financial accuracy, 95% procedural accuracy, and processing 47 claims per day, then, this is the job for you. That's going to attract a 5-star candidate because they're like, okay, I like to be measured. I like to gamify my work. I'm going to have no problem at this. And what's cool about this is that obviously it's not a company that allows dead weight. Because, most companies are just generic. And so 5-star employees don't want to work with less than 5-star employees. And the tragic part about in your organization, if you have 5-star employees and they're outnumbered by 1, 2, and 3-star employees, they're going to be like, well, this is ridiculous. Like, this guy's collecting a paycheck. I'm the one doing all the work. And, I just can't stand it anymore. The 5-star employees are the ones that leave. The 1, 2, and 3-star employees who are comfortable collecting a paycheck just will continue to collect a paycheck as long as they can get away with it. So it's really, I think that your language should be more focused on being real specific about things, being objectively defining things. That's going to attract the 5-star candidate, and it's going to repel the 1, 2, and 3-star candidate who's looking for, the opportunity to collect a paycheck.
That's great advice. I mean, when I constantly think of that because when I'm interviewing high performing companies, one of the things that I hear from their employees is that they love the people they work with. And so it's great to hear you say that. It's just really interesting, the parallels there. Also, one other thing you said, and this is a perfect opportunity to kind of introduce our sponsor, is that you use assessments in your process. And so that's when our sponsor TMA is also focuses around assessments, but for the entire talent management spectrum. You can use it in recruiting, but it's also used in onboarding and ramping up people, succession planning. It's meant for that whole that dynamic area of creating a conversation, getting to learn and know your people more, and so forth. So if any of our listeners are out there that would like to learn a little bit more about TMA and how this assessment is used to learn more about people and communicate more to your employees and even find some great candidates, let me know and we can introduce you to the tool so you can see yourself. The other thing before we jump back to Danielle is I'd like to introduce our speaker for next week, and we're going to be hearing from Beth Lefevre of Inspiring Your People with a Purposeful Business. And so we've been talking a lot about this lately, and that I think Danielle, you probably even would support this. A lot of candidates out there are looking for businesses that are inspiring, businesses that have a vision that means something to them, because I think that's one of the top things that we've been finding in the workplace today is that candidates are looking for meaningful work, right?
Yeah, exactly. So, again, we help people understand the impact as a claims examiner of what your purpose is. And your purpose is to help, people that are 85 years old who are using their benefits that they've been paying into get the reimbursement that they rightfully deserve and the correct reimbursement amount, so that they don't have to call and have this added stress of, hey, why did I not get the $1,000? Why did I only get $200? I mean, that's going to cause stress on them. So we're constantly talking about like the purpose and making sure that people understand the big picture and the part that they play. And when they do their job well, that means that the call center is not getting calls, right? And so people understand the really the important role that they play and the purpose that they play.
Perfect. Well, I know we're reaching the top of our hour here, and I just love to have our listeners learn more about you, where to contact you, where to find more information, and the exciting things that you have in your future. So, can you fill us in?
Sure. So you can find me on LinkedIn, Danielle Mulvey, and go to 5staremployees.com to learn more about recruiting, hiring, and retaining 5-star employees. And our concept is you got to go all in on this. The more you put into something, the bigger return you get out. And so that's probably what the biggest problem is that you've been, excuse my French, half-assing your recruitment and hiring. And so, it makes a big difference if you go all in on it. And so we run intensives where you can knock it out, and we get you started with templates and we give you feedback, but you've got to customize the templates. You've got to, we give you a list of questions about certain aptitudes, but then you really have to like add your own specific questions to it too, because again, the more specific you get, the better quality candidate you're going to attract.
And you're also a professional podcaster, is that right?
Yeah. I guess I became professional once we passed the 100 mark in terms of podcast episodes. So thank you. I do host Profit First Nation, the official podcast for Profit First, and I guess I'll open a can of worms really quickly, but so Profit First is a cash management system for businesses. And I'm really close with the author of Profit First, Mike Michalowicz, and in working with entrepreneurs and helping them uncover what's killing their profitability is for businesses with 10 or more employees and $1 million or more in real revenue, their biggest killer to profitability is payroll. It's their largest expense. And if you've got too many 1, 2, and 3-star employees, they're killing your profitability because you're overpaying for employees. And if you just replace them with a 5-star employee, you'll reduce your payroll expenses, significantly, sometimes up by 50%. And so that's kind of, when working with businesses and that businesses in that level, actually we're working on a book, collaborating on his next book, which will come out in December 2023. And that's entitled All In, and how to get your employees to act like owners. So we'll be talking about the 5-star employee rating system in that book and all of this other great stuff. But it's that whole 5-star employee mentality.
Yeah, that's so exciting that another book is coming out like that. So do keep us in tune, and we'd love to have you back on to hear more about strategies surrounding those concepts.
Okay,
Perfect.
Great.
Thank you. Well, it's been a pleasure hearing all your wonderful thoughts and sharing your expertise with us today. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And all her links are in the
you.
chat, everyone. So if you want to get in touch with her, check out her podcast, get in contact with her, work with her, it's all there. So definitely check it out.
Great. Well, thank you so much and for joining us here in the People Strategy Forum, and we'll look forward to seeing everybody next week. Thank you all.
Bye.
Bye. Bye.
Bye,
Bye.
everyone.
Thank you.